Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. Liverpool have just beaten Hoffenheim by 2-1 in the first leg of their Champions League playoff tie. And all things considered, it was a very good result. I mean, if someone had offered you a 2-1 win before the game kicked off, I think most Liverpool fans would have absolutely bitten your hand off at that offer, simply because while it was disappointing to concede that goal at the end, it would have been nice to go in with a clean sheet and a 2-0 lead going into the second leg at Anfield. I mean, at the end of the day, with the away goals rule coming into play as well, Hoffenheim have still got to score 2 goals at Anfield if they want to have any chance of actually progressing through to the group stages. And I mean, if they go in and play at Anfield like they're going to try and score 2 goals, then I'd absolutely back Liverpool to score at least 1 or 2 goals on the counter-attack if Hoffenheim do set up that way. So I mean, despite that last goal at the end and the fact that I think it gives Hoffenheim a bit more hope and a bit more impetus to actually go for it in the second leg, beforehand they actually looked quite defeated. They looked like they'd almost given up on the tie already. I'm still fairly confident, and I'd still back Liverpool now off the back of that game, and hopefully if we can take a similar performance into the second leg at Anfield to actually make it through to the group stage. So I mean, first things first, you've got to talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold, because I mean, I don't want to do a Robbie Savage and just give the man of the match award to someone who scored a good goal, but I mean, at the end of the day, he was man of the match for Liverpool. I mean, I'll come to the goal later, but first things considered, you've got to take into account how good he was as well in his overall play in the whole game. I mean, in the first half, he got more interceptions, more touches on the ball, and made more passes than any other Liverpool player, which, for a right-back, is incredibly impressive, because those are the kind of figures you expect from a midfielder, someone who's going to be in the thick of the action for the whole game, but someone who's effectively on the periphery in some sort of sense, playing on the right flank. It's hugely impressive for Trent Alexander-Arnold to be that influential, especially given that he's an 18-year-old making his European debut for the club, and especially when you take into that account an 18-year-old Scouser in his first ever game on the European stage for Liverpool to go up to a free kick and point to a German international, a Spanish international and a Brazilian international and just say, "Get lost, this free kick's mine." I mean, that takes balls, like massive balls, and that's what Liverpool really need. They need a player who's capable of taking games and situations by the scruff of the neck, showing a bit of needle, showing a bit of, and I don't want to be a Brendan Rodgers here, but a bit of character, showing some strong character to be able to seize the opportunity in those kind of situations. And Trent Alexander-Arnold, he seems to be like that kind of player for Liverpool, and the free kick itself was absolutely fantastic. I mean, there's something to be said for Hoffenheim's wall, and how I think, given that the free kick was around about head height, they probably should have got something on it. I think one of them actually ducked his head away from it, so that was, you know, not the best defending from them really. But at the end of the day, Trent Alexander-Arnold, he gets brilliant dip on it, and he places it so perfectly with a curl on it as well, that even if the goalkeeper did try and dive to get it, I don't think he's got any chance in hell of actually reaching the ball. So a fantastic moment for him as well. It's great to see an academy player coming through and scoring such a pivotal goal in such a pivotal game for Liverpool. That's fantastic to see. And I mean, defensively as well, he was very good. I mean, we all knew that Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's good going forward. I think he was a midfielder when he actually started out at the academy, so we know he's got those abilities in him. He's played on the wing as well before, but it was his defensive ability that we really wanted to see an improvement in going into this season, and he seems like he's worked on it an awful lot. I mean, he did everything that was asked of him fairly well. He cleared the ball when he needed to, he tackled when he needed to, he didn't really get caught out of position that much either, which when you're a fullback in Jurgen Klopp's system and you're expected to be charging forward a lot of the time, it's actually very, very difficult, I think, to avoid actually getting caught out of position at right back at any point during the game. I think the only thing that takes a slight bit of sheen off of his performance was the goal right at the end, simply because he gets caught out trying to play an offside trap. I think it's Sandro Wagner. It might have been the Hoffenheim player goes through on goal, or it might have been Uth or something like that, but the Hoffenheim player goes through on goal, and Alexander-Arnold, obviously he thinks that the player was offside, so he starts waving at the ref and saying, "Look, he's offside, pull him back," or whatever. And I can understand in the heat of the moment, when you're kind of frustrated that things haven't gone your way, that you want to start complaining to the referee, but at the end of the day, you do have to keep a cool head and just do your best. And while he probably wasn't going to be able to catch up with the Hoffenheim player, he probably could have at least sort of chased him down, tried to put enough physical pressure on him to make him miss the shot. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's fair to let that take the shine off of what was otherwise a very, very good performance from an absolutely huge prospect for Liverpool Football Club. So moving on to the performance from the team in general, I think the defence was slightly improved from the game against Watford. I mean, they still looked shaky. They didn't look that composed at a lot of points, especially the centre-back pairing. Joel Matip didn't look that great at times, and Dejan Lovren looked very nervous for pretty much the entire 90 minutes. But on the plus plus side, they were doing the right things, whereas against Watford, they looked nervous and they played like it, whereas in this game, they looked nervous, but they were still sort of making the right calls and making the right clearances and everything like that in situations where in the game against Watford, they were getting it completely wrong. There's still a few issues about things like clearing their lines. I think a lot of the time we are guilty of trying to play it out from the back and not keeping things simple enough at times. You know, you just got to hoof the ball out of the box and not really care about where it goes as long as it's going away from your goal. So there's still issues to be worked on there, and the defending isn't necessarily perfect, and there are still a lot of problems that I'd like to see rectified. But on the plus side, it does look like there's light at the end of the tunnel now, and there does look like there is some progress in terms of defending. I mean, to be fair to the squad, the game against Watford was only 3 days ago, and I'm not sure they've actually had really any time on the training pitch at all in terms of being able to rectify some of the mistakes that they made in the game against Watford. So to be fair to them, it wasn't really like they could actually change too many of the things that were issues among the defence. So, you know, fair enough, really. I think they played well under the circumstances. And as well with the defending, I mean, they did reduce Hoffenheim to about 3 clear-cut chances in the game. I mean, first of all, you've got the goal they scored right at the end, I think in stoppage time it was. Then you've got the penalty at the start, which, if you ask me, it's not a penalty, simply because the player Serge Gnabry, he puts the ball through Lovren's legs, and then instead of trying to go round him, he tries to go through him. And at the end of the day, there's not really anything Lovren can do. There's no way for him to actually get out of the way. It's not like he can just teleport out of the box and let Serge Gnabry go through him. So I think the referee's basically been conned there. And I think it's notable the fact that he didn't actually give the penalty away straight away. And I think it was slightly bought by the fans. I think it's a little bit of a dubious one there. Wasn't happy to see the penalty, but fair enough. It was an absolutely terrible penalty, and well in for Simon Mignolet for getting it out of the way. Justice for Liverpool, justice for Mignolet, justice for Lovren. We kept it at 0-0, and that was an absolutely huge moment in the tie, because, I mean, if we went 1-0 down there, our heads would have dropped. We would have Hoffenheim probably would have started sitting deep, which would have stopped us from creating as many chances as we did, and it could have been a completely different story. So it's absolutely smashing that Mignolet saved that. He might have actually saved our season when you think about it. And the only other chance that Hoffenheim had, I think this one was definitely Sandro Wagner. Near the end of the first half, there were a few ping-pong balls messing around, no one really getting it out of the box, and then it falls to him. He's sort of on the edge of the box, but he has a sort of half open goal, and at the end of the day there were 3 players who were near him. None of them started closing him down until the ball actually fell to him. So there are still issues there still seems to be a lack of focus and players not being able to actually pick up opposition players until they actually start looking like a threat. Mainly that, for me, that was an issue with the midfield, because it was mostly midfield players who started charging him down when the ball actually got to him. All the defenders were already out of action trying to stop previous chances from occurring. And coming onto the midfield, they played, again, like the defence, a little bit better than they did against Watford defensively. I did just mention the Sandro Wagner chance, but overall defensively, they looked a little bit better. I think they were plugging the gap a lot more. I talked in the post-match video for the game against Watford about how the midfield were too high up the pitch, and it meant that there was this huge gap between the midfield and the defence that Watford exploited, and they basically got all 3 of their goals through that effectively. So it's good to see the midfield dropping deep a little bit more and helping out the defence and basically just packing the box when they needed to. So that was a huge bonus. I mean, attacking wise, still a lot of issues. Obviously, we're missing Lallana, we're missing Coutinho. We don't really have any players in midfield who are capable of playing as part of a sort of front 4 with the rest of the front 3, so that's kind of understandable. We did improve a lot in terms of our midfield play when James Milner came on. I mean, at first, I thought it was simply to try and keep Jordan Henderson fit and ready for the game against Crystal Palace, because obviously we don't really have enough squad depth to make too many changes, so we should seize every opportunity we can to give players a little bit extra in the tank for the game at the weekend. But I mean, we looked so much better, and it wasn't just James Milner who was playing well. Gini Wijnaldum looked like he had so much more freedom in that last half hour. Some of it, I think, does come down to the fact that Hoffenheim did start to put a bit more pressure on Liverpool, and some more space did open up in terms of their defence. They basically started playing like we did against Watford, where there was this huge gap between the midfield and the defence, where Gini Wijnaldum and other midfielders were just roaming and having a lot of fun. Kind of a shame that we didn't really take too much an advantage of that. Obviously, we do get the Jimmy Milner goal, but we probably should have got a third, given how open Hoffenheim were at the end. But again, a little bit of an improvement, and again some light at the end of the tunnel, and a little bit more hope that maybe Liverpool can get back to the standard that I think we expected from them going into this season. And I think it will be interesting to see whether James Milner does take Jordan Henderson's spot going into the game against Crystal Palace, because I'm not a huge James Milner fan. I don't think he has enough dynamism in terms of what Liverpool need from their midfield under Jurgen Klopp, but given how well he played in that last half hour, I think there is a chance that he could take Jordan Henderson's spot, so one to keep an eye on, I think. And the attack was a little bit off in that game, I think. Mo Salah disappointed a little bit because, again, he was getting into the right positions, but the finish just wasn't quite there. Sometimes it was because Hoffenheim were closing him down. Sometimes it was just, you know, the ball was going inches wide or stuff like that. Sadio Mane, again, doing the right things, getting into the right positions. He looked creative and everything, and he was good on the ball. But again, the end product just wasn't quite there for us. And then Roberto Firmino, industrious, did a little bit of work, but a lot of the time he was dropping deep to compensate for the lack of creativity in midfield. So he couldn't really do that much in terms of actually contributing to the attack when the play got into the box. So again, there's still improvements to be made there, but it does look like we're on the road to actually improving, and it was good to see Dom Solanke for the last 10 minutes as well. Hopefully we will be seeing a lot more of him in the coming weeks, because he does look like a fantastic prospect for Liverpool. So all things considered, it was a pretty good performance from Liverpool, especially off the back of the one against Watford, and like I mentioned earlier, they didn't exactly have much time in terms of training to bounce back from the game against Watford, so very impressive to see the squad summon up the energy and the character to put in that performance. To be fair, Hoffenheim weren't that great, to be honest. I mean, I mentioned how little they created in terms of chances, considering they had like 59% possession, I think it was. They were quite toothless when it came to the final third, so they weren't quite as good as we were expecting, which all things considered is a very good thing. But once again, good to see a slightly better performance from Liverpool. Hopefully we're on the road to recovery and we will get back on track with regards to this season. So that is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, why not give it a like? If you're new around here as well, then hit that subscribe button and check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel in the past few days. Apart from that, don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll see you in a bit for the pre-match build-up video for the game against Crystal Palace. Bye for now.